Manjari, to be on the safe side, you also can recording there.
Or let me also turn it on because that would be better if you have two people recording.
Then we can start, Manjari.
Thank you, Samantha. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Manjari, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us from Sri Lanka, Germany, and around the world. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the difficult context that many Sri Lankans are facing right now with the flood and the climate-related issues that are going around. Our thoughts are all there with those affected. And even in these challenging moments, the resilience of Sri Lankans, both at home and across the world, remains extraordinary. That spirit of resilience is central to our discussion today. So, Sri Lanka, as you might know, is experiencing a significant outward movement of skilled professional. And while this has created some sort of challenges locally, sorry, I think there is an echo. I would request everyone to mute their mic. All right, I think let's continue. So I was just talking about the spirit of resilience that we have seen in Sri Lankans and the challenge that they face right now with the outward movement that has been happening and the local challenges that they are facing with the skilled migration going towards the West and everywhere else, especially towards Germany. And it shows that there is, in Germany and everywhere else, Sri Lankans are leading the way towards innovation and migrants in general. So we can see that the migrant founders are powerful contributors to innovation in the countries that they are working in. And the Migrant Founders Monitor shows that the 14% of startup founders in Germany are born abroad, raising 23% among unicorn founders, with majority holding STEM and university degrees. And these insights invite us to explore a constructive question. How can Sri Lanka strengthen its connections with its global talent community, enabling knowledge, networks, and innovation to move freely between those abroad and those back home? And how can we create environments where collaboration feels normal, valued, and impactful? We have an excellent group of speakers with us today. We have Her Excellency Varuni Muthukumarana, Sri Lanka's ambassador to Germany. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us. We have Mr. Justus Lenz, head of the Liberal Institute at Friedrich Naumann Foundation, and we have Ms. Ahani Mendes, senior researcher at ORB International in London. I would like to thank you all for being here. Just a little rundown of our session. It will run for 60 minutes. We will start with Her Excellency's opening remark, go forward to the keynote by Mr. Justus Lenz, dig a little bit deeper on Sri Lankan perspective with Ms. Ani, and finally, we will have a moderated Q&A. So before we start with opening remarks, I would request everyone to write their questions in the chat, and we can take it in the Q&A session. So to begin with, it's my pleasure to invite Her Excellency Varuni Muthukumarana to deliver the opening remarks. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Manjari. Thank you, all the participants, Justus, Samantha, and all the other panelists. It's my pleasure to attend, even though I'm having a little bit of facing a little personal difficulties. I thought this meeting is important enough to even deliver my brief remarks, because it's a new topic, and it's a topic that many are not really paying enough attention. This is actually, I don't really have statistics. These are my observations as the ambassador in Germany for the last almost 3 years. So I hope that, with such observations, someone would be interested to really look into the potential and, current situation and the future potential of the Sri Lankan diaspora in Germany as well as in Europe, because our diaspora members are mainly found in English-speaking countries. In Europe, there are migrants. Now a lot of them are citizens, but they did not go with the kind of. It was in the objective was migration to those countries, not really, to maintain a kind of connection. They were, I think the majority of them, they went when Sri Lanka was undergoing a difficult situation back when this terrorist conflict was raging. So there was a wave then. But now I notice another wave, smaller, but quite interesting. I might add that when I went first to Germany, when I went as the ambassador, I called on several heads of missions, including many from ASEAN, because I saw all those countries having dynamic relations with Germany in particular. And I remember, because I want to touch upon the, two diaspora, which are doing very well in Germany. One is the Turkish diaspora, the other one is the Vietnamese. And I remember the Vietnamese ambassador at the time saying that there are a lot of IT professionals coming from Vietnam to Germany, and they do not consider it as brain drain. They consider it as a resource, because they come to Germany, they engage, they either work in a company or they build their own businesses, but at the same time they maintain connections with their home, and they contribute through either financial or ideas or business linkages. So it was something very interesting, which I kept at the back of my mind. But later I found that because I went in 2023, then we had these economic challenges stemming from 2022 period. And then I saw many IT industry professionals coming. And also there still is some nurses who are coming to Germany. Now, Germany, you need the German language for the majority of the jobs. But I noticed that the IT professionals who are coming to Germany, they are mostly coming with English language skills. So there are some jobs that you can come to Germany without knowing German, but they are in the minority. But I see these different kind of diaspora coming to Germany. Some are coming for education purposes. Some are coming for IT sector jobs. Some are coming for nursing. I think these are some of the main categories I noticed. And I think the recent migrants are coming with the idea of having, because I think maybe Germany is nowadays they are looking outside to countries such as Sri Lanka also, because with Sri Lanka, I should say that we have a lot of connections even from the late 70s onwards. A lot of Germans were visiting Sri Lanka for tourism purposes. So some of them, they have started companies, mainly in the garment industry, but in other industrial sectors, but not very big industries, but small companies. But there are quite a number of very resilient companies who have strengthened the Sri Lanka-German trade relations. Those connections are there, and even from those days, there were Germans who had invested in tourism sector in Sri Lanka, and I see that interest is still there and continuing also. Sorry, do you hear me? You hear me, right?
Yes, ma'am, you are clear.
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, there was a call coming in. So Germans have, German nationals have retained the interest in Sri Lanka. So I think Sri Lankans going to Germany nowadays, they find a lot of connections between Sri Lanka and Germany, and that I think that increases their interest in having some sort of like connection. It's not like, okay, we are in Germany, then we are not going back to Sri Lanka. I see that recent migrants are having, they are encouraged to have connections with both their new home Germany as well as the home they left behind. I think nowadays it's a very good thing, because I told you at the beginning, there are two migrant populations, one Turkish and one Vietnamese. Vietnamese also, when they had this Vietnamese war happening in the 70s, there had been people coming to Germany, and some of the migrants had gone to the southern Germany. From what I understand, they don't maintain a lot of connections with Germany. They are integrated into Germany, but they don't maintain a lot of connections with their mother country, Vietnam. But another group of Vietnamese who had come as guest workers to East Germany, they are maintaining connections both with Vietnam and also well integrated into German society. So there are different, categories of migrants. So I think we have to also think, who are interested in, who are the Sri Lankan migrants who are interested in having a sort of like investment in Sri Lanka, or contributing through their knowledge or business linkages. And I see many, even those who migrated a long time ago, maybe they didn't think that they would be coming back to Sri Lanka. But I see, because not only from Germany, even from other countries such as, Canada, UK, some are coming back to Sri Lanka and establishing businesses which straddle both countries. That's the main thing. For example, such as the ecotourism business. So you have the tourism component here, and maybe you produce some organic food items that you can export to countries like Germany. So I see certain export businesses also, but what I'm more interested in is talking about the innovative nature of businesses that can be encouraged by the migrant population, not only migrant, meaning like both Sri Lankan heritage and also newly settled Sri Lankans in Germany as well as in other countries, because it's not only IT sector jobs that Sri Lankans can target, but there are I mean, for example, if you take Berlin, it's one of the dynamic startup hubs of all of Europe, and it's a very, very good location for companies coming from outside of Europe to have a base inside Europe, because Berlin is the capital of Germany, which is the industrial hub of Europe, and the largest economy of Europe. But because it's still a young capital compared to the other, young meaning it had like different several lives. So this is the second life of Berlin after reunification. So if you take that period, it's relatively young. So still, it's a little cost effective than other capitals. So it's a very good base for a company outside of Europe to have a base. Because, for example, in certain industries such as IT, you need a base in Europe, because if it is to deal with IT, if it is dealing with data such as data of European citizens, then you have to have you have to adhere to certain criteria, certain regulations. So it's easier if you have a legal base in a European country. So I see certain IT companies, and also going beyond IT. For example, recently I met several medtech companies who have innovative products and who are already collaborating with certain countries in the European context. So these are some companies which can look at forming stronger connections in Germany and the rest of Europe through the assistance of diaspora communities. Because I remember when I first went to Germany, when I reached out to the IT industry, they were asking me, do you have a diaspora that we can, get in touch with and form relationship with? At that time, I think the diaspora, the IT community, they were just starting to come. I think there are, maybe 200-300 now who have come there and have settled in Germany. I think they can be a good base. But apart from that, I think there are other Sri Lankans who are now interested in forming, strong relations with Sri Lankan companies. So I think they can also be part of, Sri Lanka innovative sector. Sri Lankan companies are anyway going to Germany to take part in some of the largest trade fairs in the world, not only in Europe, but if you compare all of Europe, there are many large trade fairs such as Hannover Messe happening. It's one of the largest industrial trade fairs, and where a lot of companies, especially IT and also startup companies, including IT and other sectors, can meet. A lot of established companies are coming, but it's also a good place even to go as a visitor delegation. And there are other companies such as other trade fairs. One is it started this year, GITEX Europe. That also has a startup component. So again, not only IT but other sectors as well. So there are many avenues that Sri Lankan companies can have base in Germany or in a European country and look at opportunities in Germany as well as other European countries. So for that, the new migrants, the well-established migrants, and other Sri Lankan heritage citizens of even German citizens, they can form a good ecosystem. I think it's now it's the correct time. I hope that the Sri Lankan heritage, those who have a Sri Lankan heritage, maybe they have forgotten because the second, when it comes to second generation, sometimes they forget because the main objective is to integrate into Germany and other European countries. That is good. But if they are interested, because again, these days the world is very dynamic, and you can have and should have careers not only in one country but in more than one country. So in that context, I see a lot of enthusiasm among Germans, German nationals, in reaching out to. They are well established in countries such as Thailand and even in India, even in other countries such as Sri Lanka. I think there are good possibilities because Sri Lanka is a country with very high education levels and also very good university system, including state university. So I think there are a lot of other venues such as companies, export businesses, tourism ventures, and also universities. These are some of the very good ecosystems that Sri Lanka and Germany should explore into forming innovative partnerships. I think I've taken more than what I should have, but it's because it's a very interesting topic. So with these words, I'll stop.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I don't think I can wait. I would have loved to, attend and till the end. But I have to, I think, leave in a little bit. I would love to have a recording and what was the discussion about. So thank you very much. Sorry for taking much longer
Thank you.
than
Thank
I
you, Your
anticipated.
Excellency.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It was a very deeper insight towards this intercultural aspects that actually Sri Lanka and Germany can work together. People of Sri Lankan diaspora and the young Sri Lankans can also create and foster a knowledge exchange that we can further, push towards. I think the key words is an exchange and an intercultural exchange that could happen and the possibilities that lies towards it. And I am really grateful that you took your time out in such difficult circumstances. So we are very grateful and thankful for you. Thank you, Excellency. We now can move to our keynote presentation. And I'm delighted to welcome Mr. Justus Lenz, who will present the key findings from the Migrant Founders Monitor 2025. Justus, over to you.
Thank you very much, Manjari, and thank you very much, Ambassador. I think you're absolutely right when you said there are already a lot of connections between Germany and Sri Lanka. And in this context, I think it's a very good idea to talk about migration as one topic. So Samantha, also to you, many thanks for the invitation and for organizing the talk. I did bring a presentation. I will try to share it. Let me see. I hope everything works. That looks good.
Yes,
All
it is
right.
visible.
Perfect. That is very good. And well, of course, I'm going to talk about migrant founders and their impact from a German perspective. That's what the Migrant Founders Monitor is about, but I think there are a lot of connections to our discussion. So going to have a brief look at the situation we are in, then a deeper look into migrant founders in Germany from a German perspective, and then also some policy implications from a German perspective. But as I said, I think there may be connections to Sri Lanka and to the exchange that we have. So, well, I don't want to get into the situation too deep, but I think it's important that we all remind ourselves that we do face serious challenges in Germany, but all of the things I'm going to talk about are true for all of Europe, and I know also for a lot of countries. For example, this summer I was in Taiwan to talk about education and development, and they also have a very, very, very severe problem with demographic development. Sri Lanka, I think the situation is different, but in other regards, I think there are a lot of connections, similar challenges all over the world for countries. So for Germany and Europe, it's of course the demographic development. We are getting older. In 1950, there was a ratio of the working population to pensioner years from 6 to 1, and we are getting close to 2 to 1 in the middle of the century. So, of course, migration can be one answer. And as I said, the situation in other countries in Europe, but also, for example, in East Asian countries, is very similar. We have the geopolitical landscape. I mean, again, this is from a German perspective. The war of Russia on Ukraine is still ongoing. But I think, speaking in general, the geopolitical landscape worldwide is getting rougher. So different regions for different reasons, but I think that is an observation that is true for the whole of the world, and we have to see how that develops. Also, with our friends, again, talking from a European perspective in the US, being a bit erratic, to say the least. And of course, still, these are the numbers from Germany of our real change of GDP. We came from a very strong decade of growth. Then there was the pandemic, again, something all over that happened all over the world. But in the last years, we didn't quite catch up to this golden decade we had before again. So we need impulses for our economy. And this is, of course, where migrant founders come into play. And the numbers I'm going to present to you are from an ongoing study that we do together with the Startup Association in Germany. And I just want to stress, I do not claim that migration overall is this brilliant, perfect thing and there are no problems. Obviously, that's not true. You also have to look at problems that migration can create and how to overcome that. But the goal of this study was to look at a very specific segment of migration, the segment of migrant founders. And here, because we did this together with the Startup Association, we looked at migrant founders that are either deep tech oriented or growth oriented, or both. So this is a very specific segment that we look at. Just wanted to stress that, but still, I think the numbers are very, very interesting. So let's dive into this. First of all, you already mentioned this. Well, around 14% of startup founders in Germany were born abroad. Is already a significant number, but interestingly, 23% of unicorn founders were born outside of Germany. And this is already a hint of what I'm trying to get at, of the positive impulse. Because now, when we move on, and this, I think, this is staggering, over half of the unicorn startups in Germany. So basically startups with a very high evaluation of $1 billion or more. So over half of these, at least in the eyes of investors, very successful companies with a high potential for future growth and development have a migrant founder in their founding team. And to be honest, that's staggering, but also this is consistent with the findings that we have in former years. So migrant founders in Germany, founders with a migrant background in the segment of high growth and tech orientation do tend to think bigger, and they do tend to be very growth oriented. I think maybe you could say they bring like an Anglo-Saxon American or you could say Silicon Valley founder spirit into the German startup ecosystem, which is very, very, very interestingly and is a good impulse for our existing entrepreneurial culture, which is also very strong, but has different, has a different mindset. And I think the combination of both is very good for us. So a staggering number, over half of our unicorns at least have one migrant founder in their founding team. And I already said that I think one of the main reasons is the mindset of founders with a migration background. Of course, also there are other reasons. So this year in the study, we looked at the internationalization strategy, and here you can see that almost all of the startups that have at least one international migrant founder in their team are looking to internationalize, or at least are planning to do so. So again, this think bigger picture. And also, the ambassador talked a little bit about the language, and I guess it's true. I think there are also other difficult languages to learn all over the world. But yeah, I have to acknowledge that German is not the easiest one. And also, of course, as English is already a language that most of the students already learn, English kind of is a standard. That's an advantage that, I don't know, Canada, the UK, or the US has. But interestingly, and the ambassador already hinted at that, and almost exactly half of the international startups, so the startups founded by migrant founders, have the working language of English. And also, that is very much true for other companies in Germany as well. So I could encourage anybody who's listening to, well, don't let the language frighten you. And also, again, this is very, very interesting. The founders in Germany already have a high ratio of university degrees, also of degrees in STEM, natural science, mathematics, and so on. But the migrant founders have an even higher share. So this again, here we are talking about a specific segment of people who are well educated, who want to do something, who are active, and who have a very entrepreneurial mindset. And as I said, of course, there are also other kinds of migration, and we also have to talk about that. Fits into the picture. But again, this study shows, as I said, with staggering numbers, that migration can be really something that helps. In this case, helps Germany, but as you already hinted, but of course also when you have, talking from the Sri Lankan perspective, when you have companies all over the world founded with the help of Sri Lankans, of course, that's also a chance for connections. Well, let's look at the policy implications. And here again, this is from a German perspective, but I think there are a lot of things that are also true for other countries, also for the context of our talk today. So first of all, looking in general, when you ask founders in Germany the attractiveness of Germany in key areas, well, the quality of life is very high rated, and also the general security and stability. We already talked about the language. That is a little bit more difficult, but as I said, don't let that frighten you. And then, of course, you have, well, here we ask specifically about the conditions for skilled labor immigration. In other years, we ask about bureaucracy. And to be honest, that's a problem. So there we also, a lot of countries all over the world have problems with their bureaucracy, but we have that problem as well, and we have to work on that. And here you can say that the tax and duty level is high. So this is one area that we have to look at. You might say you could say these are like the general conditions for business, some which are very good, but there are others that we have to improve, and that is well, currently ongoing policy discussion in Germany. Then, and I think this is very, very, very important, more than half of the startups of migrant founders in Germany are founded either out of universities or of research institutions. And without going too much into details, in Germany we have research not only at universities, but also at like big research institutes. In a lot of other countries worldwide, both are combined just in universities. So that's why this is combined here. And this shows, in my opinion, that the importance of universities, of going abroad to study, connecting universities. The ambassador also talked about that, for getting, in this case, skilled migration. Also, interestingly, and again, from a German perspective and from a European perspective, this is going to be very, very interesting, because as far as I know the research, the role exactly of universities that are attractive for international talents was one of the main reasons that the Silicon Valley managed to grow. So when you look at, I don't know, NVIDIA, just recent example, Elon Musk as well, yeah, very popular example. So, and obviously, at least under this administration, the United States are currently changing this. They are making it more difficult for universities in the US to attract international talents. And this is going to be interesting from a European perspective. There might be a chance for us, but keep that in mind. Universities are very, very important in attracting high skilled immigration. Well, and then when we look at challenges, the goal is to get to policy implications. Here we have the question of raising capital. And when you look at founders in general in Germany, 40% say that that's a challenge, which, to be honest, would be a surprise if the number weren't as high. Of course, that's a challenge, but for migrant founders here, every second one said that this is a challenge. And I think the reason, and we also have data from older studies that support this, is, of course, and here we come to language, but also to culture, and also, of course, to just coming later to the game. The key area here is the role of networks. And so when we ask founders in general about their regional network in Germany, almost 70% say that that's good. With migrant founders, it's 60%, still good, but less. And when we look at the Germany-wide network, then less than 50% of founders with a migration background say that that they assess that positive. So networking is something that's important for everybody who is founding a company, but obviously, and I think it's clear that it's not surprising for founders with a migration background, that's even a bigger challenge. And so to sum up, really have to stress that migrant founders in Germany have a positive impulse on our startup ecosystem, on innovation, and our entrepreneurial mindset. And the first time we did the study, I personally expected something in this direction, but I was very surprised that the findings were so clear. Said every second unicorn in Germany has a migrant founder in their team. That's staggering. They are better educated. They think bigger. They also think international. So they want to grow their company. They want to expand international. They often have also a high-tech focus. And in general, you might say the ambition is bigger. So in a way, this is like the Silicon Valley mindset that they bring to Germany. And I think in combination with our family business mindset, that could be something very fruitful. Well, and for policy areas, well, obviously, don't forget that the general conditions for companies are very, very important. Bureaucracy, taxes are some things we have to work on in Germany. Keep the universities open, acknowledge the role of good universities. That's something that is often overlooked, and I think also was key to the success of the Silicon Valley. And I said that we have to look at the networks, and that is, well, this is also something for civil society and for the business sector itself, but of course also states can help here and governments. Well, and with this, I want to close my talk, and I look forward to our discussion a bit later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justus. That was very insightful. And I mean, to help connect these findings, I would like to now invite Ms. Avani Mendes to share her perspective. And the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Manjari. Sorry, haven't been talking for the last 45 minutes. Thank you so much to Spark Inbox for having me and for facilitating this conversation. Before I go into it, I'd like to also take a moment to remember the devastation happening in Sri Lanka right now. My thoughts and sympathies are going out to everyone affected by the flooding and the landslides across the island. I think I'll keep this short so that we have more time to go into the questions and answers and the discussion. But I'm going to touch on, from my perspective, what I think or what I see as important to think about when we're having these discussions about Sri Lankan migrants and how they can drive innovation at home. So to start off with, and I think this is very important when we're having these discussions, is that the problem set as it pertains to Germany and Sri Lanka are inherently different. So primarily, Germany is a large host country to many migrants from all across the world. And it's also a developed economy and an investment hub comparable to the likes of the US, the UK, and so on. Sri Lanka, on the other hand, is what you would call an origin country. So the source of many of these migrants, including, as the speakers before me have said, those to Germany, and it's also an emerging economy. So the way Sri Lanka will need to approach and attract innovation and investment is inherently going to be different to how Germany would. So here, while the question, as Justus just said, for Germany is, how do you attract this diverse group of migrants from all over the world and then convince them to invest in Germany over the US, for example? What is important for Sri Lanka is, how do you capture the outflow of talent from your country, who often take with them a foundational level of education and experience from home, and who are now investing and innovating abroad? And how do you attract these people to come and innovate and invest back home? So basically, how do you create an ecosystem in Sri Lanka that is conducive to them investing the way they would in places like Germany? So now, often, especially in the age of globalization, these migrants straddle two worlds, and these are the host and the origin countries. So this is similar to what Her Excellency was saying earlier. A lot of migrants now, especially, develop these transnational economic and social links that span both countries. So, for example, they may be dual nationals, they'll maintain social relationships in both places, they'll remit money back and forth, and so on and so forth. So now in academia, this is what's referred to as the concept of being a trans-migrant because you exist transnationally. And these transnational links that route the diaspora to Sri Lanka offers a very underutilized opportunity, especially following the 2022 economic crisis, for these migrants to aid the country's economic recovery. And it's great that organizations like Spark Inbox are recognizing this and facilitating conversations like this one. So, what does migrant economic interaction with Sri Lanka look like right now? So, as it stands, I think there is some level of engagement that does exist. There are migrants overseas who have created small companies. And there are also those who invest through social service activities like donations, investments into things like building schools, not business centers, community centers, community halls. And I think you especially see this in the north and the east. So while it is happening sporadically on this kind of small individual scale, in terms of a more large scale investment, especially in the tech sector and the bigger sectors, it's not really institutionalized or centralized. So we have to think about, is this something we want to strive to do? And if so, how do we do it? So, for example, one small way we can do that is by incentivizing and facilitating the local networks that already exist and kind of convincing them to expand their investments. But before we do all of this and we think about these individual policy strategies, there's quite a large gap that we must first seek to close. And this is something that I will be working on compiling throughout the next year with Mr. Murtaza Jafferji and Advocata. And that's that as it stands, there is no comprehensive mapping of overseas Sri Lankans. What we do have is the SLBFE registrar, but that only constitutes workers going to the Gulf and similar countries. It doesn't account for people going to OECD countries, and especially those who follow the migration pathways of like education, family reunification visas, and so on. So this opacity makes it difficult to even identify and understand what the Sri Lankan diaspora community looks like out there before you even facilitate engagement. So why do I say this? So as we all know, and like Her Excellency also mentioned, the Sri Lankan diaspora is a very nuanced, diverse diaspora because you have people who have left for a variety of reasons throughout our history, right? So you have people who've left in the late 70s and early 80s, you have people who left during the war, and then you have the more recent surge of economic migrants following the 2022 crash. So now all of the factors under which these migrants left and their subsequent ties back home or lack thereof will affect their propensity to engage with the country. So, for example, a younger migrant who felt compelled to leave in 2022 might be more willing to engage than somebody who left in 1983 or a second or third generation immigrant whose parents or grandparents left even before then. And as such, there are going to be different ways that you have to engage with these different groups. So it's therefore necessary to map out and understand what these groups look like and if they're willing to engage with the country prior to formulating the specific policies for diaspora investment. So basically, all this to say, you need to kind of take a step back and start at the foundation, build that knowledge base, and upon that, you can kind of build a very cohesive and comprehensive policy framework. So now circling back to what we can learn from Germany, and here we get a little bit more into the specificities. The report underscores how migrants bring that international perspective to host countries like Germany. And of course, the same is true for origin countries like Sri Lanka as well. They bring back global networks, technical skills, international business practices, which for a developing nation like ours is always going to be useful. So there are some strategies that Sri Lanka can adopt. Some it can borrow from the German context, but I think for a lot of others, they'll have to look more broadly. So similar to Germany, in that report, they mentioned immigration frameworks need to be strengthened, and that how that can be a hurdle sometimes. And I think that's the case for Sri Lanka as well. You need to make it easy for people to own property, invest, and one way that you can do this, which would actually be especially useful to attracting back second and third generation migrants, is to employ something like the Indian Overseas Citizen of India card, which allows people who are second and third generations and living overseas to more easily invest back, trade on the stock market, and so on. This also does the additional benefit of building symbolic capital and a broader reaching sense of national identity that includes overseas citizens of the country. And this is also a very comprehensive way of strengthening ties to home, which in and of itself will be an incentive for return investment, so for diasporas to invest in the country. Similar to how Germany is able to leverage its access to European markets, Sri Lanka should also leverage its bilateral agreements and kind of position itself as a gateway into Asian markets. It's also worth considering things like how do you make the repatriation of profits easier. I think you currently can under the special investment accounts, but that still requires a lot of red tape and so on. So there are a lot of small steps while we're in the process of building this bigger knowledge base that you can take to make it easier to invest and attract our diaspora back to invest. Yeah, so I've been speaking for about 10 minutes, so I think I'll leave it there. But yeah, if just to sum up, the two main takeaways are, yes, I think Sri Lanka and Germany have inherently different problem sets, but Sri Lanka can still look towards countries like Germany for things like best practice on how to start creating this conducive investment environment. And secondly, before we think about individual policies, it's imperative that we first map out and understand what our diaspora looks like so that we can know how best to engage with them. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Avani. This was uh, very interesting. I mean, looking at the formation and the diaspora data collection, it's also a challenge within the South Asian countries in general. And following up with your last statement about the best practices, I would like to now ask Justus that what do you think are the best practices and the core conditions in Germany that allows the migrant founders to thrive? Because I think that would be a key takeaway for us to look into.
Well, that's of course the billion-dollar question, right? Because I would say it's the general environment. And Samantha knows that we did in the last years a lot of connecting Germany with Sri Lanka and talking about the general economic development. So yeah, that's the million-dollar question. But really, Avani, I want to thank you because I think you're absolutely right that when we talk about international learning, that the situation is always different, and you really have to be careful not to compare apples with peas or whatever. But I really think one of the key points is the role of universities. And here, of course, and I'm just spinning ideas, but here, of course, maybe the goal for Sri Lanka, maybe not to, the most important goal, maybe not to attract foreign students, but for example, to try to get university degree holders out and to try to keep the network in. Yeah, that might be a very good idea, but yeah, the role of universities is very, very important. And also, and that is something that we obviously don't do in Germany, but this idea to have a mapping of the potential diaspora. That is something that I think is really wonderful to try to get a ground, to get a basis in order then to try to activate the potential. Because, and let me say that, from my visits to Sri Lanka, I really have to say that I always had the feeling that the country is in a lot of ways very attractive for international investment, for international businesses, for international companies, that it has a lot of potential. And the interesting question, because of a lot of different reasons, the culture, the open culture, the friendliness, the environment, the geostrategic location, and of course the ideas how to activate that potential. And the diaspora might also be a very good key to try to get that message into the world. Yeah.
I totally agree. Avani, do you want to respond to this, or shall we continue with further questions?
Happy to continue. I don't think I'm best placed to explain what conditions in Germany help. So yeah, happy to continue.
Yeah, so I just like when everybody was talking about of course, not comparing apples to oranges or peas, etc. But at the same time, there is a common thread which we can actually learn from each other, and going away from the main concept of what we are discussing today, my one question is that how can we bring these kind of synergies between these countries, like let's say between Sri Lanka and Germany, to have such dialogue? Because this, to be honest, for me as well as an Indian who's in this whole conversation, it's very interesting of how we can foster such exchanges. What do you think?
Sorry, is that for me or for Eustace?
For both of you. And if you would like to go ahead, please.
I think in terms of synergies, I mean, again, $1 million question. There's a bunch of things, right? So like Eustace said, universities, they're always helpful. I think I would be hard pressed to say that is should be top of mind for Sri Lanka at this point, because I think we first have to again take a step back and focus on making a kind of context where it's easier to do business, like reduce general bureaucracy, kind of have better taxation and incentives for investment, and of course, making sure that we're protecting ourselves from external shocks like the ones we have seen in the past few years, right? I think also in terms of, yeah, synergies and creating these links between countries, again, there's so many ways this can happen, but through with the German example, I guess, through organizations like GIZ, through kind of soft power kind of networks that exist, like for like global, what would I call it? Like a global Sri Lankan innovators like network and things like that to connect these people. I think those are always great. Yeah, I think especially when it comes to these transnational links, I think these international organizations and embassies are probably the best place to facilitate that through networking and all. But again, like I said, if we are able to in Sri Lanka create the investment conditions, and this is not necessarily like exclusive to like just the diaspora, it's our general investment environment. If you're able to create that and have diaspora links back, you're inevitably going to get this flow of knowledge that this diaspora is going to bring. They're going to bring their global networks, they're going to bring their like German ways of working to Sri Lanka, which of course we can benefit from. But again, for all of that to happen, the conditions need to exist. So that's what you need to first start thinking about.
So the policy intervention is needed at the foundation and at the core of this exchange to actually happen, if I understood it correctly, from your perspective. Eustace, what do you think? How is it possible to facilitate this kind of exchange? And also, as you have put it multiple times, that the success that the migrant founders are having, but still having some challenges when it comes to investment and when it's come to the networking. One way or another, I think knowledge sharing platforms being there could also facilitate such networking. What do you think would be a possible solution to such challenges?
Yeah, well, of course, it's also again, a big question. And Avani already looked at international organizations and the role of government, also of just personal connection. And I would like to stress the role of civil society as well. So if I understood correctly, Avani, you're also going to work with Advocata, right? So they are connected to think tanks all over the world, and Samantha organized this talk, yeah. And so I think we shouldn't underestimate the power of the civil society in its different forms. Often it's easier to form connections there than to go through official channels. And also, of course, and I mean, we live in the digital century for good or worse. But one positive aspect, of course, is that we could organize a talk like this. I mean, imagine how that would have worked in the 1980s. We would have had to fly to somewhere. And it's also, of course, important. And I personally think the future is hybrid, so you can do online talks, but at the end, you also need the personal connection. So, yeah, we do have to travel, which is also a lot cheaper and easier than 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. But still, you can also use online tools to foster international exchange. And well, we haven't quite developed that yet, but at the Friedrich Naumann Foundation, we are also thinking about doing hybrid international exchange programs. So I don't know, you come to Germany for a seminar for a week or two, you meet a lot of people in Germany from other countries, but then also, you don't have to stop, but you can, for very low cost, meet again online. And so I think we have to think about things like that. Also, of course, when we talk about networks, so also within Germany, well, a good example is how we publish the Migrant Founder Monitor itself here in Germany, because we thought a lot about that, but at the end we decided to do it with an online event. And I mean, that's a small detail, but still, a journalist from another capital in Germany can attend very easily. So I have my next meeting. I'm not in a hurry, but I have my next meeting very soon, and that just wouldn't be possible without digital technology. So I think we have to think about that also in network building. And again, here, at least talking from Germany, we do have state initiatives to try to help network building. Some of that works, but again, civil society and business itself is, I think, even more important. So I mentioned our partner, the Startup Foundation. So they are very, very important networking platform for entrepreneurs in Germany. And there are also, I didn't include this in the presentation, but there are also several initiatives from different perspectives that try to bring entrepreneurs, migrant founders together. So I think we need both.
Thank you so much, Jesus. I think a balance of both would we should look forward to. I think it would be all hands in, from the policymakers to the civil society to the individuals, to just foster this kind of exchange, this kind of growth, this kind of innovation, where mostly the world is trying to now look inwards. I think we should not do that in the global economy that we live in, and actually hold each other's hands and move forward together. That is towards a better growth. So I think we are running out of time, unfortunately. So thank you to our speakers and to everyone who was here today. And I mean, today's conversation highlights how much potential it exists between these two nations, these two global talent community, and at the same time, we have one key takeaway from my perspective is that holding hands together, having knowledge exchange, having cross-cultural networking is very important for our global growth. And with that, I would also like to hand it over to Samantha, because thank you for bringing us all here under this one platform, Samantha. Please, we would like to hear
You,
from you.
Anjali, for the opportunity. On behalf of Spark Inbox, I should say thank you very much for Excellency Ambassador and also users from Liberal Institute, Avani, and also moderator Manjari. I think as users mentioned, yes, of course, this is only a beginning. So what we tried was like connect this one concept and try to adapt into a Sri Lankan model. But this is only a beginning. As you said, I mean, it's good that the foundation is starting up this new concept on the hybrid international exchange programs. Of course, I mean, we might have some expertise from startup foundations, and also you might be able to connect some other expert, and we can bring this concept and also develop and adapt to the Sri Lankan model. I think Avani might help with the Advocata. I think we'll be able to build this model as a proper structure. So our next step would be to, based on discussion, we'll develop a concept note and a concept paper. And we first will present to you and we'll develop together and we'll be able to then present into maybe the policy level. Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you so much, Samantha. And I would like to now, if anyone still has any question, please feel free to reach out to us. We have recording of the session as well. And yes, Justus, Avani, if you have any last words.
No, nothing from my end, but just thank you, Samantha, for putting this together and putting us all in touch. And thank you, Manjari, for moderating. And thanks, Eustace, for your insights.
And I can only repeat that. So thank you very much, Samantha, Manjari, and Avani. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and I look forward to the next conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.